Welcome to Access Academy. Today we begin an all-new webinar series called Duxbury Braille Translator, From First Paddle to Flocking Flying. Today we feature the topic, My First Document. Whether you are new to Duxbury Braille Translator or simply unsure where to start, this is the place to be for a structured introduction to Duxbury. Our well-skilled and entertaining presenter is ready to begin for today's learning. Kyle, we are glad that you are here with us today.
Ooh, I'm glad I'm here too for a little paddling. Did I drop? I stopped sharing, right? So I should.
You are sharing. We see
Oh,
your
excellent.
title slide.
Perfect. Then let's paddle. You're probably here because you already read the description of our webinar today. And if you're watching this as a recording, the description is probably in the description area of the YouTube posting. I am Kyle DeJute. My title at APH is Braille Trainer, which is a little bit of an umbrella term and a wonderful position where I get to, I say, push up my nerd glasses about Braille codes to anyone who will listen. I came into the Braille Trainer position after working as an in-house transcriber at APH, and I used Duxbury as my main transcribing software while working at APH, and also with the little bit of transcribing I continue to do in my Braille trainer position. We are here today, hold on, before I ask you a question. We are here today to talk about Duxbury Braille Translator. Again, this is DBT, the Duxbury Braille Translator, not Duxbury Systems, which is the company that makes Duxbury Braille Translator, and also its like little sibling, Perky Duck, which is a very simple 6-key entry program famously used for preparing files for maybe the National Library Service Braille transcription certification programs. And that is Perky Duck, which is one program, and another program is Duxbury Braille Translator, or DBT, and both of those come from Duxbury Systems. Okay, so now I have a question for you. Was that really transparent? The question is, what does DBT stand for? Your first option is Digital Braille Translator. Second, Dux Braille Time. Third, Duxbury Braille Translator. Or fourth, Duxbury Systems Inc. or Incorporated.
And hopefully that's sharing and showing on your end. I think that we have had quite a few responses already dropped in, 72 out of 92 participants with us today. So I'm going to end the poll. And Kyle, here are the results. I'll let you be the announcer of that.
You guys are so right. 89% of you said Duxbury Braille Translator. Digital Braille Translator is tempting because this is a software program. However, we're talking specifically about the Duxbury Systems program, Duxbury Braille Translator. And I'm going to say again later, there are other Braille translation and Braille transcription programs. Just to be fair, Duxbury isn't the only game in the world. So the DBT is the actual program, Duxbury Braille Translator, and that's a full Braille transcription program with which, especially if you are an international participant, you may be aware, Duxbury includes translation tables, or the ability to produce Braille for many different languages and many different Braille codes in that Duxbury Braille Translator. And that comes from the company Duxbury Systems Incorporated. Their website is duxburysystems.com, and that's always useful information when we're talking about a software program to know where the software program has come from. In this case, it is especially useful to go to the Duxbury website for at least two reasons. There's documentation. So the sort of help menu for Duxbury is available for anyone to check into any part of online, whether you have the program or not. And whether you're running the program or not, you can find the Duxbury documentation on Duxbury's website, which is duxburysystems.com. The other reason that this website is especially useful, I'm not going to say it's because that's where you buy the program, because I think we know that, but more the website of Duxbury is useful because it has the opportunity to sign up for some listservs, which give updates about Duxbury releases. And then there's another listserv that includes some questions and answers about how to use the program. But today we're talking about your very first document. So let's start at the very beginning, as if you're that shivery little duck at the edge of the pond and you're going to put your little toe of your webbed foot in and feel that the water is kind of cold. Pull your toe back out and give a little shiver. We're just starting at the very beginning. When we open the program, we could find the program icon, which is a shortcut, usually labeled DBT, and then the version number that you have. So what I have on the screen is that program icon and the name of that shortcut. You can kind of tell it's a shortcut visually because it has a blue curvy arrow. Otherwise, you may hear the announcement that it's a shortcut. And then what I have here is DBT, and then the version number is grayed out because Lord knows we all have different versions of software, right? I believe the current version of Duxbury is 14.1, and that's the very best that we could have, and that in a perfect world, we would all automatically have that. And we know this isn't a perfect world, and our programs don't always get updated immediately. So you may have a Duxbury version that isn't the latest and greatest. So that's going to be the identification of the program shortcut icon that might be in your start menu or on your desktop. You know, everybody's computer is laid out differently. There is at least one other easy place to find the program. But before we go there, let's talk about what opening just the program is not. And that's opening a file that has been created by Duxbury. Yeah, so if I have some file name .dxp, that's going to have a certain kind of icon and always that file extension. That's a print document. Or I might have some sort of file name and then the file extension DXB. That's a different kind of icon. It has a little B on a sort of rough picture of a Braille page, where the DXP file icon has a little P on a sort of picture of a print page. Or we could have a BRF, yeah? So we have a file name and then the file extension .brf. Any of those is a specific file, yeah? It's going to probably open the program, but, you know, most of the time your computer will know, hey, you want to open a DXP file? Sure, I'll use Duxbury to open it. But sometimes our computers say, oh, you want to open a DXP file? I don't know what to do with that. Opening any of these files is not an absolute surety to open the Duxbury program. The absolute surety should be clicking on the program icon shortcut or going into your program files and finding the duxbury.exe. Or, like I said, if you open the file itself and your computer knows to use Duxbury, then there you go. That file is going to open within a Duxbury program window. That next way to open a Duxbury is a teaser we're not going to talk about today, which is Swift, and that's from Word immediately sending to Duxbury. So let's say we have navigated our personal computer setup, and whether it's through the program files, a shortcut on the desktop, or searching in the start menu for our DBT version, we have said, computer, I want you to execute the Duxbury Braille Translator program. And the computer will pop up a little waiting screen, but then give us the Duxbury program window. Please take a a moment to appreciate, I said the Duxbury program window, not a file. What we see here is a gray open space, and no file name will be read by a screen reader. After we have opened the program, maybe we can pause for a minute and say, yes, there are other programs. There's Braille Blaster from APH. There's Braille 2000, which is another Braille transcription program. It does the translation between print and Braille and back again, and also formatting. And then there's a SMB or SAOMI Braille that has some utility, especially maybe for music. Goodness knows there are other Braille transcription and translation programs out there. We are just specifically being ducks today. Okay, Kyle, all we've done is open the program window so far. I know, but we covered some important other information on our way. So great, we have our program file or our program window open. Now we need my first document. Yeah, I want to make a document. So I would, under the File menu, choose to make a new file. So either click on File, and in the dropdown, it's the first selection, or Control-N. And then we still don't have a file because we get to make a really important choice before we start a file. And this is a really important choice. We are choosing the template, which tells Duxbury, here's the Braille rules to follow for this document. And those Braille rules include formatting rules and which tools will be available for working in this document, which styles and codes will behave in which ways in this document. All of that is determined by which template you choose. So we have said, I want a new file, and then this pops up, and we still don't have a file. We get to make first a choice if we want a new print file or a new Braille file. Now, today we're talking about the most common Duxbury Braille Translator direction, where we're transcribing from print to Braille. So let's leave our radio button of print selected. And then in our document settings template, there's a huge list of templates. Like I said, some of our international participants today might already be aware, or those who love to look at all the pieces of a program might be aware, having scrolled through this whole menu, that the list of available templates from Duxbury is huge. And it includes multiple versions of an English template or multiple English-based templates. There are also multiple Spanish-based templates. And then there are things like languages spoken all over the world. Sure, there's Russian and Swahili, but also, of course, Arabic and what's the one that I'm thinking of? Ubuntu, maybe, which is I think, Far Eastern Russian language. So with this dizzying array of templates, which one are we going to choose? In the US and Canada, we essentially have two options. In Canada, we kind of only have one, yeah? Because the Braille Authority of North America dictates the formats and gives us guidelines and principles for Braille transcription in the US and Canada. So our template options here would be English UEB, or hyphen BANA, or English UEB hyphen BANA with Nemeth. So the BANA with Nemeth is going to be specifically in the US, right? Because Nemeth is no longer an active code in Canada. There are other English templates, and many of those are historical. So they are no longer relevant to new transcriptions we're making, because new transcriptions we're making are based on currently active codes in the US, and EBAE, for example, English Braille American Edition, or eBay, is no longer an active code in the US, only UEB for English material. So, and then Nemeth code is another active code in the US. When we choose a template, right, for the vast majority of our work, English UEB-BANA is going to be the choice that we make. There are some great Australian templates as well. Australians have a beautifully unified perspective on formatting and training, and they've got some powerful templates for their Braille authorities' choices in formatting. But for the Braille Authority of North America and the vast majority, like all of the transcriptions we do in the US and also in Canada, we're going to choose English UEB-BANA. So before I let go of it, I just want to say in front of that, you must choose a template before you start a file. There's a little moment from the Indiana Jones movie where he's going to look for the Holy Grail, and it says, you must choose, but choose wisely. Now, I promise you, if you choose the wrong template, you're not going to like turn into smoke and disappear. However, your workflow is going to be really confusing. You're likely to be missing some tools that you expected to be available. If you choose the wrong template, you're likely to see Braille translations that are not what you want and not what you expect, which is why we choose a template wisely. And we choose one of those English UEB. Can you make your own templates? Yeah, you can. You could build off of any of these templates and add some specific text, add bespoke, that is tailored to you styles. That is not what we're going to be doing in our first document. Some of the tools, though, that would let you make your own template and some of the concepts for that are covered in a webinar we did earlier a couple of years ago called Foundations of Duxbury, which tries to identify and categorize in a useful way the nuts and bolts of Duxbury, the pieces that hold it together and help it move. So that's Foundations of Duxbury. And we're not going into the nuts and bolts of the kind of backstage work of Duxbury today. Okay, I chose it. I opened the program. I started a new file. I chose a template, probably English UEB-BANA. And now I have this white blankness in front of me. We can type or paste into that blankness, which in this case, we started a new print file with the English UEB-BANA template. And so we're typing print into our blank file. In this case, maybe first heading. Paragraphs are cool because they contain lots of information, blah, 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 blah. Or we could copy that material out of a web page, a PDF, a Word document, anything, and paste it into the DXP, the Duxbury print new file. Are those the only ways to get material into it? No, they're not, but keep going. Okay, I have a test your listening and attention question. True or false? When you first open DBT, Duxbury Braille Translator, it starts with a new file ready. When you first open the program, it starts with a new file ready. True or false?
Kyle, they are really quick on answering this one.
It's a good group.
This is a very quick one here. I'm going to share out. So we're up to, one more to get in here. Once it gets to six, there we go. Once we got to 65 out of 95. Okay, I'll share this out. And I'll let you be the deliverer of the news turnout.
As the vast majority of you said, false. Duxbury Braille Translator, when we first open the program, is just the program, no file ready. We have to say, file, I wish to open an existing document, which we're not here to talk about because we're talking about our very first document. And in that case, we might go file new or control N. And then we get to choose whether it's a print or a Braille file. Like pretty much always, we're going to choose print. And then we get to choose a template Oh, there's a wealth of choices, but pretty much always we're going to choose English UEB-BANA. Great, Kyle. I'm the little duckling, and maybe I've gotten into the water, and maybe the waves are kind of making me bob. But I would really like to go places. I would like to paddle, and that is see my Braille. Where is it? Where in the world is the Braille? Well, there are kind of two answers to this question. The first is it's waiting for you to ask for it and hit File Translate. So in that file that you were typing, with that open in the program, we go into the File menu and choose the sixth option, or simply press Control T. Get your fingers warmed up for Control T because we do it a lot to see how things are going. And that generates a brand new separate file. When we translate, it creates a Braille file from whatever we had right then in the print file. And I said there were two answers, right, to where in the world is the Braille. The other answer is that sometimes it's hiding in a translated line at the bottom of the print file. And we're going to talk a little bit about that translated line and how it's lovely and pretty nice and not to be leaned on. It's like a cardboard house. Yeah. Cool idea. And not our most sturdy, perfect tool. So the best place that the Braille is the file that results from Control T, or translate, which is an option under the File menu. Now again, there we go. Great. Go on. Hold on, Kyle. Before you preach, let's take a moment to appreciate when you translate, what appears in your program window is that Braille file. And this Braille file shows, should show where the Braille is going to be on the page, or if we turn off codes, it will show where the Braille is going to be on the page, and also the actual Braille cells that are the result of translation from according to the rules in the template you chose. That Braille that we just saw is a new and additional file from the DXP. So what can happen inside our one Duxbury Braille Translator window is multiple files, some of which could be print, some of which could be Braille. So what's showing here on the screen is an untitled print document 1, and we've hit Control T maybe from that, and then said, okay, I'm done with that Braille, and closed it. Then we've changed some things in the print file within the Duxbury program window, pressed File Translate or Control T again, and got an untitled Braille document 3. And then maybe we just minimized that, or we otherwise went back to the print file, made some more changes, or just hit Translate again, and we got Untitled Braille Document 4. So now this one Duxbury window has Print Document 1, Braille Document 3, and Braille Document 4. Each of those Braille documents came from the print document at some point in time, and they are separate entities, all their own. There can be many sort of doggies in the window. How much is that doggy in the window? We want to make sure we have the most recent Braille translation from our print document. Here's a little comprehension reminder question. I know your answers are going to be quick and ready. What is the name of one of the two most commonly used DBT templates in North America? The name of one of the two most commonly used templates. There's Udmurt Basic, English, BANA Pre-UEB Textbook DE, BANA. Third is English UEB, BANA. Fourth, English UEB Australian Formatting. Or fifth, English UEB Basic.
Wow, there are already 74 of our attendees that have put in here. So let me share this with you. We'll go ahead and end that. And here are the results for you, Kyle.
Out of the park. You're so right. English UEB BANA is one of the two most commonly used DBT templates in North America. Now, there were a couple of other answers, and I think the majority of them were for English UEB Basic. So I agree that English UEB, this is still going to give us the following the rules of UEB from International Council on English Braille. And English UEB Basic can be a really useful tool outside of BANA jurisdiction or Australian Braille Authority jurisdiction, or even the United Kingdom Association for Accessible Formats. Those elsewhere, when you're making a UEB transcription, English UEB Basic kind of gives you basic tools for formatting and does still follow the rules of UEB. However, our English UEB BANA template gives us the US and Canada formatting and specific choices, tools, and settings as according to the rules from Braille Authority of North America. Let's look again at this Duxbury Braille window, yeah, and it can have within it multiple files, and you can either see those file names in the header of the files window within the program window, or there's a screen reader JAWS hotkey for reading the title of the current Braille file. I know Insert H lists JAWS hotkeys in Duxbury. And for troubleshooting and checking current JAWS settings, Insert Q is your key. So Insert Q gives you some JAWS settings from Duxbury, and Insert H lists JAWS hotkeys within Duxbury. So you can find out how to get the title of the file you're in read. Each of those files has its own translated line. Now, whether you see this translated line or not is a setting you can toggle on and off based on your preferences, or whether it appears in the file, rather, is a setting you can toggle on and off. The translated line, like I said before, is a bit of a cardboard house. Yeah, it looks good and it's useful for a little preview, and it is a little preview. Yeah, it's a little pinhole view into the document. Only that line is translated. So if you have like a formatting command that's affecting multiple lines, that one translated line is probably not going to reflect that, or it may not. If you only ever read the translated line, you're not going to get the full information about your full Braille transcription. Only the file translate is going to give us that, because it's going to take all of the instructions and content from the file that you're working in and then translate that and create a new separate doggy in the window. That is a new separate file. And again, each file has a distinct name. Yeah, so when you have these multiple doggies in the window, even if you haven't saved the files, Duxbury is keeping track of what's been happening and giving you even the unsaved titles like Untitled Print Document 1, Untitled Braille Document 3, or if these were coming from a titled document, those might be something like My First Document .dxp, and then My First Document 1, My First Document 2, My First Document 3, so on and so forth. So let's say we've typed a whole bunch of stuff into our print document. We've created a Braille file and said, that's not quite right. So we've closed the Braille file, adjusted in our print file, and then made a Braille file we're really happy with. What do we do now? Alternatively, I've started my first document, I've typed in a lot of my content, I pasted in some of it, and now I have to have another cup of coffee. Or perhaps my 8-year-old is calling from the other room and I want to save my work. I have to stop. Well, as you might imagine, our option to save is under the File drop-down menu, and we can either Control S to save or F3 to save as. It's a bit of an eternal question, right? Do you save or save as? And the answer in Duxbury is pretty much the same as anywhere else. If you've already been working in that specific file, then you save, and that saves overwrites previous versions of that file. If you save as, then you get to go back through the whole process of checking the location of the file, double checking its name, and deciding as what file type you'll save the thing. The bigger question, more specific to Duxbury, becomes to save print or save Braille. So it is my experience that the most universally consistent, clear, and stable workflow is to do most of your work, all of your work, in the print file. And then once you've finished changing things for the translation, changing things for the file, then translate and create a Braille file. And from there, you can save a BRF. So you might end up with multiple file types, all with the same file name, would be an excellent workflow management process. If you are working in a DXP, that print document, just like we set up for my first document, file, new, print, and we chose the template English UEB BANA. I've saved that a couple of times along the way, let's say, and now I translated it and I saved a BRF that represents this print document from a specific point in time. Yeah. You don't have to understand every aspect of file types and file management with time and date stamps for your translations. If you keep working in the DXP, and when you're finished changing things, you translate and save the resulting Braille file, you'll kind of be paddling. You'll be moving forward. I'm going to pause here for just a minute and review the chat for questions, and then we're going to, I expect, do in real time what we just talked about doing. I saw a couple of questions about foundations of Duxbury, and that's available on APH's YouTube page. And my favorite thing about YouTube, that's a big statement, isn't it? But I think my favorite thing about YouTube is that within an organization or a person's YouTube page, you can search. So you can search within the page. You don't have to use the universal search all of YouTube search bar. And to that end, you could search something like Duxbury on the APH YouTube channel, and some of the things that would come up include Foundations of Duxbury, which is the webinar I mentioned. Also Monarch Snapshot, Setting Language Profile, and Braille Grade. Ooh, which is an opportunity for transition to another question I saw in the chat. The question I think was, how do I have uncontracted Braille? And
Yes.
I'm going to give you an answer that feels like fobbing it off, but it's not. A bigger answer is, I think, in Foundations of Duxbury. An even better answer is in the handout material. At the very end, there's a couple of slides that are answers to questions that came up after Foundations of Duxbury. And one of those questions is, how do I have uncontracted Braille? And then there's a link to, I think, the relevant Duxbury documentation in there. In short, you put in a code that says, hey, stop contracting. And then you can also put in another code to say, hey, start contracting again.
Kyle, there was also a question of what's the difference between English UEB Basic and English UEB BANA? That came on early in the beginning of your presentation.
I totally see that. And let's look at it when we open the Duxbury program here today, because I think saying the specific tools that are available in one and not in the other will be easiest if we are looking right at and we're actually using the program when we say, here's the places where they're different. In short, there are different styles available in the two different templates, UEB BANA and UEB Basic.
And that was also another question. So that is great. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. I saw there was one more maybe about import and importing a file. I think next month we're going to do part 2 in this series, which is working in an existing file and using Microsoft Word. So some of the mechanics of how Duxbury can pull a file into itself and translate from that instead of this, you're entering the content in a new file. I think we're going to cover that next month, importing files and using Duxbury to open files that have been created outside of Duxbury. But today we're creating things within Duxbury. So let's do that. Come here, Duxbury. I found my program icon. It's on my toolbar. And I got the waiting screen. And then my program window opened. So I can just start typing in this file, right? You guys, I'm kidding. I know you know. I know you know there's not a file open right now. We have to go to File, and then our first two options are New or Open. I'm going to select New, and what immediately pops up is this pop-up called File: New ... And I get to choose whether my document type is a print or a Braille. I'm going to leave my radio button for print selected. And I get to choose a document settings template. Now, it's not a cheat, right? I have utilized a Duxbury tool previously, and when I found the English UEB-BANA template, I pressed or selected Mark Template as default. So now every time this pop-up comes to me, the highlighted template is English UEB-BANA. Again, these templates, there's so many of them. Afrikaans, Albanian, Amharic, Arabic Basic, Arabic pre-2002. I won't read all of them, but they are listed essentially in alphabetical order. So there's a whole swath of English templates. And perhaps you can see the next option after English UEB-BANA is English UEB-BANA with Nemeth. All right. Okay. I file New, print with the English UEB-BANA template. And now let's jump ahead a little bit to answer the question that came up in the chat. If I go to, with this DXP, with the English UEB-BANA template selected, and I go into Layout, first option, Apply Style, this is going to bring up the pop-up box that is a list of styles that belong to this template. So these are also in alphabetical order, like the template names are, and it goes, there's 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. So each of those is going to be a paragraph style that, oh, I don't know. I think I went a little Foundations of Duxbury there. Anyway, these numbered styles give where the Braille starts and where runover lines start. Past the numbers, we get into some of the named styles, both paragraph styles and also character styles. I'm going to name a couple other styles available here in the English UEB-BANA template, and then we're going to start another new file and choose a different template and see what styles are available. So what if I go to like the M's? Yeah, I have main body single, Maori, math, text in math, NB, no bold, and lots more. I also, farther down in the T's, I have transcriber generated page number, transcriber note. Now, what if I just don't apply any kind of style because I really just wanted to look in that menu? I'm going to close it or hit cancel and then open another new file Again, select let print be my document type. And the question was about the the UEB basic. So this is English UEB basic template. Now you can't tell right away that I have two files open in this Duxbury program window, but if I toggle between files, perhaps by minimizing or by shrinking down one of the files, now I can discover that there are two files open within the Duxbury program window. My untitled print document 2 is the one we just made with the English UEB basic template. And if we go to Layout, Apply Style, or F8, which is another favorite shortcut in Duxbury because we're going to apply a lot of styles as we transcribe. My list of styles is different. There are no numbered styles available in the UEB BANA basic template from Duxbury. It starts with acronym, then there's ACT, address, biblical langs. The styles list is really long in pretty much every template, and that is partially because Duxbury creates a style for lots of specific scenarios. Also because the Duxbury keeps a fair amount of historical styles, so some of these we might never use again, but they still exist. So if people are using them, they don't disappear while they're still trying to use them. If that doesn't answer the question about what's the difference between the templates, then please let me know. And further, please let me reiterate the difference between the English UEB Basic and the English UEB BANA templates is about the styles available, which help to determine formatting and sometimes contraction for a small part of the document. The difference between the templates is not how they follow rules of UEB. So they're both following the contraction rules from International Council on English Braille. So if we were going back through our process, we had opened Duxbury program. We want to make a new file. Now you might notice that today when I do that, I press Control N, for example. What you see on my shared screen does not include the pop-up File New. And that, full disclosure, here is because I have two monitors on my screen on my desk right now. I'm only sharing one of those monitors, and the monitor that I am not sharing is my cluttered, nasty main display. And the Duxbury is putting the pop-up, which always happens when you click File New, on my main display. So each time I'm just dragging the pop-up File New over from my main display so that you can see it on my shared display. If you're ever working with two monitors and you don't see that File New pop-up after you have clicked File New in the Duxbury program window, it could be because your display settings have given Duxbury wrong directions, right? Had Duxbury take a wrong turn and put that pop-up somewhere that it isn't immediately apparent. In that pop-up, we've stuck with a print document, so we can QWERTY away and paste from websites and other documents, probably into a template English UEB BANA, or whichever one our team and experience indicates is the right template, and hit OK. Then we have a file open, and we can start to type things in. Worth noting, if you're a keyboard user, thank you, Svetlana, Control-Tab switches between opened documents. So we were talking about those doggies in the window. And if you are using your keyboard to navigate Duxbury in order to see which doggies you have in the window, which files you have open in the Duxbury program window, Control-Tab is your keyboard shortcut. So into my print document, I might type, oh, this is a word list. That's my heading. And then my words in the list include template, hothead, transcription, Braille, because we love to see the word Braille translated, right? E-document, success. I'm not using any capitals for any of these if you're following along at home. And then perhaps I have the next section of the document is going to be essay questions. Because this is our very first document, I'm just going to translate it. I know there are styles to apply. I would love to see that word list heading kind of centered on the page, but I'm going to fight my all too detail-oriented transcriber tendencies and just translate. Oh, look at that. What happened? I have some weird settings, apparently. I'm seeing ASCII in my translated document. So I'm going to go to see if I can fix that. It's probably under my global view preferences. No, global default views. This is, you guys, this was not part of the plan. It was show full page, default font for Braille documents, Braille. So now let me translate again. And now we can at least see some Braille. You know, the computer gremlins have provided us an exciting opportunity here to explore some settings that I wasn't really planning to, but let's do it anyway. First, I saw some ASCII, just the, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. I saw ASCII Braille, which isn't the little dots or the Braille cells. And so I went to global view preferences. No, that's not true, is it? One more time. I went to global default views and selected under default font for Braille documents, Braille. Now there is something else that I want to change here because I want to be able, I as a very site dependent person, I like to have my shadow dots. So I'm going to go into global, and probably my issue is an internationalization. I have English and North American English and use local national encoding for Braille, all Braille display. No. Oh, SimBraille. You guys, so exciting. Remember how I went into global and view preferences? Or sorry, remember how I went into global and then default views? And I keep thinking it's view preferences, but it's actually default views for whether I want my Braille file to be showing print or Braille. I selected Braille because I love Braille and got really distracted and didn't read all of my options. But the option that I want if I want shadow dots is SimBraille, which is a Duxbury font. And so now I can translate and see the Braille cells complete with my accommodation of shadow dots for the dots that aren't raised in any given Braille cell. And you know what? Like I said, since the computer gremlins have provided this opportunity for us, because I was messing with my settings earlier and made them weird, let's look at one more common site-dependent Braille cell display issue. And that's whether your things that are spaces show any shadow dots. That one is under global view preferences. No, I'm just kidding. It really isn't. I know I keep going to that option. It's actually under internationalization. There's some important settings here, both for sighted mouse users and also for those who are less sight dependent and using a keyboard. But for the spaces, if I choose down at the bottom, prefer Unicode Braille patterns for Braille display, that usually makes any blank spaces have a full cell of shadow dots in the display. And don't worry, I know I said global internationalization has some important settings, both for those of us who are site dependent and who like the crutch of the shadow dots, and also for keyboard users and screen reader and refreshable Braille display users. And that is that same setting, yeah? So prefer Unicode Braille patterns for Braille display is related to, or can be related to, how screen readers say the Braille cells, like whether they look at them in context or whether they just announce them kind of by dot pattern or by dot name. and how the Braille cells appear on a refreshable Braille display. This is prefer Unicode Braille patterns. Is an important setting for screen readers and refreshable Braille displays as well. So now we have made our very first translation. Let's go one more step, and then I will get to some of the view questions and comments that you all very wisely put in the chat. I want to go one step further with my first document and add a little bit of formatting. So here in the heading word list, I'm pushing F8 so I can get my apply style, and that's the list of styles available in this template. Yes, I could have gone to layout and chosen the first option and still gotten the apply style menu. And maybe I'm just going to type the letter H in hopes that it takes me to a bunch of styles whose names are heading something. Yeah, H1, heading centered. That's going to be my centered heading style. So now, did you see that? One more time. I just have my cursor on the line that word list is, or in the paragraph that consists of just word list. And then I applied a style, which was heading H1 heading centered. And now, when I translate with Control T, remember that little get your fingers warmed up and a heart-shaped button for Control T? We do use it a lot. When I translate, now my cap word, cap list is centered on the Braille line and has a blank line before and after it. All right, you guys have some exciting questions about exactly what we're doing, so let's do it. The difference between heading centered and regular centered, I'm going to give you a short answer, and then I'm going to refer to Foundations of Duxbury again. The short answer is heading centered has blank line instructions built into it, so it'll have a blank line before and after it, except at the beginning of a Braille page. And centered does not have blank lines built into it, so it'll be centered in the Braille line width that you've established, and it can have text right before it and immediately after it on those Braille lines. How did I enlarge the Braille text? So there are two answers to that question. I keep translating, and then the whole Braille page appears on the screen, and so that you can see the cells if you're site dependent on the screen, I'm going to view and deselecting full page. So then my Braille cells are the size that I've set in my view preferences for the font size in Braille of SimBraille in the Braille documents. That's a great kind of rabbit hole to go down either by exploring the Duxbury documentation in the help menu for how to adjust views, and maybe for us to do in future all the various ways that you can tweak how big your Braille, your SimBraille is, whether you have shadow dots or not, what happens with blank lines, if your translated line is appearing or not. All of those things that you can tweak. The description of how to do that is in the Duxbury documentation. And I'd like to talk about it later, but I don't want us to get kind of into a whole nother pond from my first document today. The Duxbury documentation is available from duxburysystems.com. We love a good website. And then whether you're using DBT Win, that is Duxbury for Windows and PC, or DBT for Mac, that is for Mac and Apple users, then you choose the web page for that. And as you scroll down, the second heading, I think, is whichever you've chosen. DBT Win, for example, general documentation. And then there are a couple of links to Duxbury Online documentation, Duxbury DBT Online documentation, Google Translate, because again, Duxbury is used in a lot of different places with a lot of different language users. Enlarged Braille text, that's one way to, yeah, I just turned off full page, but there are view settings where you can set your font for SimBraille quite big or quite small. We did heading centered as opposed to centered. Yeah, one more time, because I know those of us who look at a Duxbury screen, we either love or really hate the shadow dots showing up. And the setting for that is that global internationalization. And it depends whether we have the bottom of that window, the first radio button, or the second one chosen. The first makes us not see shadow dots for blank cells. And under global internationalization, if we want to see shadows for blank cells, if we choose the second radio button at the end of the internationalization pop-up, then we select prefer Unicode Braille patterns for Braille display. And then we do see a full cell of shadow dots for blank cells. Now, the difference between ASCII Braille and Unicode Braille patterns is something that years ago, it feels so long. I think it was 2022. Willow Free and I talked about in the webinar, which is recorded on APH's YouTube page, and we talked about ASCII Braille and Unicode Braille patterns in the webinar, how Braille works electronically. Okay, so I think we did a heading in our first document. We did a list of words. There's something wrong with this list of words. One of my words, well, again, my words were template, hothead, transcription, Braille, e-document, success, and then if I want to start the next section, it's titled essay questions. But something is incorrect about these transcriptions. It's e-document. Poor little sucker. He's all lowercase, and the way that I did things this time, it's a document. Ed document? If we're going to say the E separately, traditionally, we might have a capital D, in which case we would get the transcription E capital D document. And so we would, reading the Braille, have a clear understanding of the word. However, in this word list, we don't have that capital D. And so for this translation table, again, spoiler, I am using right now Duxbury 12.4 and the most current version is 14.1. So my translation problems are unlikely to be exactly the same as yours. However, the translation problem I'm having right now, and that is that e-document is not, it is contracting, the E and the D, bridging where I don't want there to be a contraction bridging two parts of the word. So I'm gonna sneak in an important code here, or at least a useful code, and it's simply the slash. Oh, I made it pop up without you. I pressed Control open bracket to bring up enter code and parameters. Alternatively, I could have pressed F9 to enter code and parameters. And there's a drop-down menu for it as well. But between the E and the D, I'm just going to put in a slash code so that I can now have my E and D not contracted. Sorry, I made slides come back. Now, most of the time you won't have to massage your transcription or your translation that way, but I want you to know that it's possible and that we can do that in the print document and then generate a new little doggy in the window that is a Braille version of our most recent work in the print file. So that has gotten us through generating your very first file, from opening the program to choosing a template and getting some stuff somehow into your print file, translating, recognizing you're getting multiple files. So now it's time for a question. Get your clickers ready. You've probably already answered. The question is true or false. An edit made to a Duxbury print file changes the connected Duxbury Braille file. True or false? Whatever your answer, The reverse is also under consideration. A change to the Braille document changes the connected print document.
I'm going to give just another moment. I want to see if we can get our numbers up a little bit. We have a bit of a competition going on between the two. So if I allow just a few more of you to think about that question, if you haven't answered, select an answer. Well,
this is a slightly sneaky true false.
Well, we are somewhat plateauing. So here are the results for you, Kyle.
It's a 60-40 split between false, which is the correct answer, and true. So this is a tricky question because it says the language is just tricky. A Duxbury print file is in fact not connected to a Duxbury Braille file. Any change you make to one file just has no effect, none, on any other file. Now, if we're talking about, let me say one more time, any existing file, I guess, if you're talking about like future files to come, then sure. A change that I make in the print is going to result in a Braille file that comes from that most recent print creation. Let me pull up the program window one more time and say, here's my print document. And what if I translate it now? I get a full screen of a new Braille document. And that's in addition to the print document that's in my program window. If I go back to my print document, either by shrinking windows and visually clicking around, or by Control-Tab and selecting my print document, let's say I make a change and type, "This is the best Duxbury class ever." That's you guys. You're making it great because you're so fast and engaged. This is the best Duxbury class ever. Now when I translate from this print file, I again get a new and separate Braille file. I've been doing this a lot, so now we're up to file name Untitled Braille Document 10. And that one says all the things that we had before, and also the phrase, "This is the best cap Duxbury class ever!" exclamation point. And that's different from the, one sec. That's different from the other Braille file we had, which doesn't include the text, "This is the best Duxbury class ever," because when this Braille file was created, when this doggy was born, the print file didn't have the phrase, "This is the best Duxbury class ever." However, later in time, we had added, "This is the best Duxbury class ever" to our print document. So when we translated, we got a Braille file that does have that text. And if I delete that or add to it, let's add to it. Let's be positive. And I deserve a treat. That's you. You deserve a pat on the back or a sip of something nice. Now I've added that and I deserve a treat in the Braille file. Let's look back at our print file and see if I deserve a treat. No. There is no effect in the print file from what we did in the Braille file. So our objectives today, we're just first paddling, were explain that DBT stands for Duxbury Braille Translator, which is the main software product of the company Duxbury, or Duxbury Systems Incorporated. 2, identify choosing a template as an inevitable part of making a document in DBT. And we really looked in some good depth at what it means to have a certain template and which styles are available. And our last objective for today was explain that DBT's Braille file is separate from and not connected to DBT's print file. Did we do it? Did we get a little paddling forward motion going on? I hope so. If not, we can maybe try again next month and build on what we've done, because we're gonna do another webinar in this series called Working in an Existing Document and Using Microsoft Word. 2 other parts of this series are Getting Good at Editing, good at editing. I like the way that sounds. And macros and math. Again, I'm Kyle, and my email is kdejute@aph.org. Hold on, I'll come back to this slide. But this is the picture that comes up when you're waiting for Duxbury to build fonts and access its program file. I just think it's really cute and charming. It's a little computer that has a hand reading Braille coming out of an embosser. There's like a funnel that goes into a computer tower, and books are coming into the computer, and we're churning out Braille. And there's, last but not least, a duck flying, if you will, with a book to deliver for transcription. Okay, good.
Kyle, thank you so much. I just knew that we were all in for a great treat, a great sense of humor, and keeps things going and the learning moving along. There were a couple of times when you mentioned a previous webinar that had aired about 2 years ago. I don't know, maybe it was 3, Foundations of Duxbury, and I dropped that URL into the chat window. It's the archived link for that. So if there were some questions that were not answered today, I am almost betting that there's a lot of just that foundational information is right there. So I'll make sure that that is in the chat window for you. And I am getting things set, checking things over. One moment. Pause.
I did see 2 questions that I could maybe answer real fast while we're here.